Good. All right. Good evening or supposedly afternoon. So, welcome to the translation seminar. My name is Ryan Rizki. I am from batch 18. So I will be your moderator today. Um, First, we will have our first speaker, Brigitta Filla. Her personal background is she is an energetic, ambitious person who has developed a mature and responsible approach to any task that she will undertake or situation that she will present it with. She is also able to be a team player and resolve problems and conflicts professionally. And her achievements are as follows. She has became the presenter in the International Conference of English Language Teaching, Literature and Translation 2021. She also succeeded in making the students show a significant development of their English ability and have a good study experience. And next, her work experience first is as English tutor intern at Mr. Learning from March 2021 to July 2021. She has been teaching English for a group of people from senior high school to undergraduate students. And she compiled and prepared a study plan for basic pre-intermediate level students. She also helped students hone their English speaking skills and provide tips to improve their skills. And next, she also became an English translator intern at Therapal Pharmaceuticals. From May 2021 up to July 2021, she helped the company translated various kinds of business documents from Indonesia to English. And last, as a private tutor, she is a freelancer from 2021 up until today. She helped the customer find the most suitable English course so they can have a personal study plan. Previous education, first is Universitas Sanata Dharma, Yogyakarta, from English Letters, batch 2018 up to this day. She is a member of English Debate. She also as a chief executive of Literature for Children and Young Adults Club. She is also a volunteer abstract translator at Wikili. She was attending Popkri Satu Senior High School. She was graduated in 2018. She was a deputy editor-in-chief for the Mapusa magazine from 2015 to 2016. She is also a dance club member. And abilities as follows. First, advanced language knowledge. Second, have in-depth cultural knowledge. Third, a well-written communication skills. And lastly, good organization and attention to detail. And our next speaker is Sarah Christabel Raisa. She has been an active member of Integrity since 2018 and has participated in ILOC for 2 years as an article contributor. So I think that's all for the background of the speakers. I would like to pass over to Brigitta Filla, please. Time is yours.
Thank you. Please wait for a moment. I will share screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, wait. All right, how about now?
Yes.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon, Sarharis, judges, and everyone. Hi, I'm Brigitta. As Ray already mentioned before, I'm a final year student of English Letter from Universitas Sanata Dharma. First of all, I am very grateful for the opportunity as the first presenter in this 8th seminar of translation. And the topic I will discuss today is the medical terms in translation in Grey's Anatomy, streamed on Netflix and Disney Hotstars. So, did you know that Netflix had 36 million new subscribers in 2020 and become the world's most popular video streaming services? I know it sounds very, very crazy, but the pandemic not only brings benefit to Netflix, also brings benefit to Disney. After its launch in November 2019, the services quickly become the formidable rival of Netflix. This happened because both services provide an entertainment that everybody loves, which is movies. However, most movies available on these services are English speaking. Thus, subtitles are very essential for Indonesian citizens to enjoy foreign film. We all know subtitling is not always an easy task due to several constraints and limitations, especially when we try to translate a technical text, such as technical manuals, scientific documents, commercials, administrative, and of course, medical terms. And in translating such sensitive texts, like medical terms, a translator must produce an accurate translation, but it also needs to be understandable. In other words, its language has different structures, grammars, and vocabulary. And in order to create a decent and legible subtitle, it is necessary to translate the subtitle of a film not only grammatically correct, but also need to be natural as possible compared to source language. That's why the study will provide a practical insight into the most accurate and acceptable translation method that both translators can use in the future. The object of the study is Grey's Anatomy TV series. It is a medical-based drama centered around an aspiring surgeon, Meredith Grey. So it is very natural that in every episode they have or they will insert medical terms. However, the translation produced by Netflix and Disney Hotstar shows a quite different result. That's why I want to know that in translating medical terms into subtitles, it is not always an easy way. It has to be short and easy to understand. Therefore, I want to know how translators from both Netflix and Disney convey these foreign medical terms to the audience and their impact on the accuracy of the translation result. In this object, the result objective is to determine which subtitle that translated into the most understandable for the Indonesian audience. Of course, by combining the fact of the field analyzing translation of the episode from Grey's Anatomy focuses on the medical translation techniques and quality, because I believe the use of specific translation technique has a significant impact on the produced translation quality. For the methodology in this study, I observed the medical terms on both streaming services using qualitative and quantitative studies. And then categorize the translation strategies according to the translation theory of Vinay and Talbotnet. And then followed by calculated the percentage of its classification to find out the dominant strategy. Lastly, I will analyze the accuracy of the translation result. This paper uses theories derived from the English version of Stylistique comparée of Français de l'Anglais by Jean-Paul Vinay and Jean Talbotnet. It is a comparative stylistic analysis of many various translation strategies and procedures. And they distinguish between direct and oblique translation, with the former referring to literal translation and later on free translation. Oblique translation is used when literal translation is not possible anymore. Now I will give you an insight to the subcategories of oblique translation. The first one, we have borrowing. It is employed to address a meta-linguistic difference. And this is very basic translation strategy, which is entails using source language term in the target language. I will later on explain how they were applied by both translators from Netflix and Disney Hotstars. Now, second one, we have COG. This is a special type of borrowing in which the borrowed expression is literally translated into the target language. Now we have literal translation. This refers to the process of translating a source language text into its counterpart in the target language. Then next we have transposition. This is the act of modifying the word class of a sentence without altering its meaning. So possibly the word sometimes could be moved from verb into adjective or maybe adjective into a verb. And then we have modulation. It means that changing a point of view, like changing a part of view, part of speech, I'm sorry. And next we have equivalence or reformulation. In this context, adjusting aesthetic and structural strategies are used to depict two contrasting circumstances. These two texts that is included are the source text and the equivalent in the target text. The last one, we have adaptation. This refers to the situation in which there are cultural differences between the source and target language. Thus, translation can be thought as a type of equivalence. It's known as situational equivalence. Okay, now we can talk about my finding and discussion. And I will show you that the first place is occupied by adaptation. This strategy dominates the entire process because the translation results are always almost accurate and it is easier to understand. So you can see in here, I will give you an example of upper lobe, which is translated into lobus actus by Netflix and Disney translator. And according to the medical dictionary, lobe is one of the subdivision of an organ or other part, which is adapted into lobus to redeliver the phrase structures in the target language. As you can see in here, Netflix uses it more than Disney Hotstar by appearing as 48.9%, while Disney only appeared for 40.4%. The second most dominant strategy is literal translation. I hope my example could come clear in your screen, but in here, please focus on the word sedated. So the example sounds, I want him sedated now. And the word sedated was translated into debuse, both by Netflix and Disney translator. Sedated itself was described as being in calm, relaxed state resulting from the effect of seductive drugs. Meanwhile, abuse means obat untuk membuat orang kehilangan kesadarannya. Therefore, this term can be directly translated without undergoing many changes because it has a pattern meaning in both language. So you can see in here, Disney used it more by appearing as much as 38.2%. But literal translation could also produce inaccurate or inconsistent result, which is in here. I have the example of elevated white count. Please pay attention to the word elevated in here. Netflix translator choose to translate the word elevated with naik, sel darah putih naik, naiknya sel darah putih, which has multiple meanings such as moving up or to the higher places, riding, and multiply. So the meaning becomes a little bit ambiguous since the term elevated is meant to increase, especially abnormal in decrease or number. While in here, Disney translator decided to use a more appropriate term, namely peningkatan. Here, peningkatan sel darah putih, which a better fit with the description of elevated, even though the translator has to change the word class initially in the form of adjective into a verb. That's why Netflix here used literal translation. That's why it becomes inconsistent. And Disney choose to use a transposition. Now we have borrowing. Both translators rarely use this strategy because it's low effectiveness. It happens because many medical terms have been translated commensurately into Indonesian, so there's no need to use many borrowed language. I give you an example of situs inversus. It is a condition in which the organ of the chest and abdomen are arranged in a perfect mirror image, reversal of the normal positioning. Yeah, so it will be quite a long explanation. That's why it is only natural that the two translators only borrowed this term and not translated. But yeah, they rarely use it. That's why the proportion of this strategy is below 11%. Now we have something similar with borrowing that is called borrows from the source language to the target language, but some of it were literally translated. In here, I have the example of rapid HIV that is translated into tes cepat HIV and uji cepat HIV by Disney. The word rapid itself was translated into tes cepat and uji cepat, which can represent the true meaning of rapid. That is described as a fast rate of motion, activity, succession, and occurrence. But both translators only borrowed the term HIV here, so it becomes less effective. That's why the occurrence of this strategy is very, very low. Now next we have transposition. Transposition replaces one word class with another without changing the message. When the DL has no other options to the language system. I already gave you an example before. Now I will give you a more clear example. Okay, now pay attention to the word adrenal insufficiency. That is translated into kurang hormon adrenal and adrenal tidak cukup. Insufficiency, it is a noun in the source language, changed into less, kurang, and not enough, or tidak cukup, which is an adjective in the target language or Indonesia. Although it has the same meaning as the source language, these changes make the translation result less effective or less accurate. That's why the occurrence is only 6.3%. Now, finally, the last one is reformulation. Both translator only use it for once during the whole process of translation in the episode. I will give you an example of draw labs. The phrase itself is an idiom that is always occur in every episode of Grey's Anatomy. It is a term to test the patient by taking their blood samples. And both translators took the freedom and liberty to reformulate the idiom to something similar or equivalent to draw labs in Indonesia. Netflix translated into ambil darahnya, and Disney Hotstar translated into lakukan tes laboratorium. Both of them are correct and both of them are accurate. But yeah, it only appears for one. Okay, for the accuracy itself, there are accurate translation, less accurate translation, and inaccurate translation. Accurate translation is defined as the message of the source text is wholly diverted into the target text. There is no deserting, no reordering, and a sentence of the translation is fully translated. This means that the translator should find how the source language message is correctly transferred into the target language without omission, add-on, or significant. Here, there are 34 out of 47 data from Netflix that is accurate and 38 out of 47 data from Disney Hotstar that can be described as accurate translation. For the less accurate translation, most of the meaning of the word, technical terms, phrases, classes, sentences, or in the source text have been accurately transferred into the target language. However, there are still some meaning distortion or double meaning translation, or there are meanings that are omitted, which disrupt the integrity of the message. In here, Netflix only has 7 out of 47 data that is less accurate, and Disney only have 8 out of 47 data that is less accurate. Now for the last one, there are only 3 out of total 994 data that are classified as inaccurate translation. When translating the text, there are some distortion and differences. So yeah, as you can see in here, it only appears in a very minimal time. Now we can conclude. There are 6 strategies used during the whole process of the translation in this episode. There are total 47 medical terminology data in the subtitle of Grey's Anatomy, and only 2 strategies that dominate the entire process, which is adaptation and literal translation. For the accuracy itself, it shows that 72 data are considered accurate and 19 data considered less accurate, and only 3 data are considered inaccurate. The strategy which generates translation at high level of accuracy are adaptation and literal translation. Since the terms are adopted from the source language, the meaning can be conveyed to the TL accurately. Although both have similar results, Disney still outplayed Netflix because it produced more accurate translation. However, in my opinion, and some other people who already watched Grey's Anatomy on both streaming services, Netflix are more understandable and readable. So it leads to the next point, which is mastering both language. I propose that a translator should be mastered in both source and target language, particularly in concept, vocabulary, and terminology, because mastery in both source and target could affect the quality of the translation result. Furthermore, translator must be aware with the target reader or intended audience, like I already mentioned before, to be used as one of the factors in the translation process. That's why I mentioned that even though Disney produced a more accurate translation, Netflix is more readable because some of the translation results from Disney are too long and we don't have time to read it wholly. That's why we need to rewind if we want to really read it completely. That's all for me. I'm sorry if there is any mistake during my presentation. I do hope you gain some new insight, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Brigitta Filla, for sharing your study. Now we are moving to Sarah. Christabel Raisa, please, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Rizki. Okay, I will now share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, first of all, good morning, everyone. Today, I am going to be presenting my research paper result with the title Translation Equivalence found in the English version of It's Dala and Wannabe. Oh, and first of all, my name is Sarah Raisa, and I am from the 18th batch of Universitas Sanata Dharma. Okay, so in translation practice, one of the most important aspects is equivalence. And as mentioned by Catford, the main issue of translation practice is finding the appropriate equivalence in the target language. And translation equivalence itself is defined as a term that sees source text and target text to have the same value to a certain degree as according to PIM. However, in the case of song translation, this finding precise equivalence may be difficult because it requires many consideration when translating it, such as if the song is meant to be sung, or if it's just to be translated for the people to understand. So in this research, the research question is what translation equivalents are found in the English version of It's Dala and Wannabe. And the objective of the study is to identify and analyze the translation equivalence in the English version of Dala and Wannabe. To analyze the collected data, this research applies to 5 types of equivalence according to color, which includes denotative, connotative, text normative, pragmatic, and formal equivalence. So the first type of equivalence is denotative. This type of equivalence sees the level of sameness from extralinguistic factors. So in this case, source text and target text have the same, the words used in the source text and the target text have the same denotation. For example, in the source text, there is the word makan, which is the act of taking a food into the mouth and then chewing it and then swallowing it. And this word have the same denotation as the word eat from in the target text. The next one is connotative equivalence. This equivalence sees it from how the source text conveys the words or meaning. And in this type of equivalence, lexical choices are taken into consideration when it is translating it into target text. For example, in the source text, there is she is bullheaded sometimes. Bullheaded does not mean that she has the head of a bull, but it is a synonym of stubborn, which is why the target text translated into terkadang dia keras kepala. The next equivalent type is text normative, and this type of equivalence is dependent towards the type of text. So in this case, linguistic and textual characteristics of a text is translated according to to what the type of text is. For example, in the source text, there is the word you. However, if the context of this text is meant to be delivered for a business purpose that is formal, the word anda is used. However, if it is meant for a younger audience or a more casual context, the word kamu is used. And the next type is pragmatic, or also known as communicative equivalence. This type of equivalence can also be defined as equivalence that respects the recipient of the text because it adapts the translation for the receiver of the message. For example, in source text, it is his fever is up to 103 degrees Fahrenheit, which is translated to demamnya mencapai suhu 339,4 derajat Celcius. And in the target text, it is used derajat Celsius instead of derajat Fahrenheit because the target audience, Indonesian people, does not use degree Fahrenheit. And the last type is formal equivalence. And this type of equivalent maintains the form and aesthetic qualities of the source text. And in this type of equivalence, word place and individual selective features are taken into consideration. For example, roses are red, violets are blue, I just want you. And in the target text, it is mawar itu merah, violet itu ungu, kamu yang aku mau. And it is done, so it maintains the rhyme between the source text and target text. And this is the result of the analysis in the form of table. So out of 14 data collected, there are 19 data that cannot define any equivalence between the source text and target text. And then the most dominant type of equivalence is connotation with 13 data found, and then followed by denotative and then formal. Next is the data analysis, and the first one is denotative. As mentioned previously, denotative is where an equivalence are found between the source text and target text because of the words used that have the same denotation or exact meaning. And in this first table, both source text and target text can have both the source text and the target text can be simplified to have the meaning as I'm perfect. And in source text, there is the word wanbyok, which in English directly thus translates into perfect. So both of these source text and target text have uses the same words with the same denotation. The same goes to the second table, and in both the source text and the target text, the meaning can be simplified as I do not want to grow up. And the source text uses the word tolder, which can be translated in English into to mature or to grow up, which is the same word that is used in the target text. And opsoyo here is the don't, and it is the same as never because both are just signifies the negative to the grow up. Next one is analysis of the connotative data. And in the first table here, the source text is
차라리 이기적 이외. And it translates to I'd rather be selfish. 이기적 over here means selfish in English. However, the target text did not translate this word directly into selfish, but instead they use get all I can get, which is an act of being selfish because get selfish is also defined as taking everything for oneself, for one person. So this get all I can be seen as an act of being selfish. So in this case, the target text expresses what this source text wanted to convey by expanding the meaning. While the second table, there is a Chodeliamian morote, which can be translated as have a long way to go. And this can convey the meaning that in this context, the singer are still young. So the target text expresses this message by simplifying the meaning to I'm young and naive. And the last analysis is from the formal data. And as mentioned previously, it is the type of equivalence that maintains the form and aesthetic of the original text into the source text. Now, in this context, both of the table have the word dala, and dala is derived from the adjective darada, which means different. And due to the fact that the word dala is very important and significant to this song because it is first the title of the song, Dala Dala, and it is repeatedly mentioned in the song over and over from the chorus. Because of that, the target text maintains the form dala in target text to maintain the rhyme in the song. Instead of translating the word into different, which is its exact meaning. So in conclusion, the type of translation equivalence found in the English version of Itzy's Dala Dala and Wannabe includes connotative, denotative, and formal. Connotative is the most frequent type of equivalence that is found in the data. So that is for me today. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Sarah Christabel, for sharing your study. Now we are moving on to Q&A session. Please, if you'd like to ask both of our speakers some questions, please raise your hand or just write it on the chat box down below. Please, thank you.
Chats first, please. Chats.
Oh yeah, sorry, the judges, please.
Oh, okay. I guess I would start the question and answer session. Okay, thank you, Rizki, for letting me ask them. Okay, first of all, I guess I'd like to compliment both of these speakers, both Filla and also Sarah, because they did such a great job in presenting their paper. I really, really enjoyed it because it's so insightful and your PPT, your guys' PPT are awesome. It's simple, easy to read, and also creative. So I know that you guys are also organized, and we could also see how much effort that you guys put into making this PowerPoint. Okay, the way you guys deliver your presentation is also clear, so we could know both of your guys' result and analyzing process to analyze your guys' object. Okay, maybe I would give the constructive feedback first. Okay, so for Villa, maybe you could relate the paper into other literature or give more explanation on like how the theory used that you used different from others, and also the reason why you chose the the theory. Okay, and then for Sarah, I guess I would suggest you that maybe you should provide a little more detail about the methodology so that we know how what's the step that you put into making this study. Okay, and then for the question, I would like to ask Villa regarding what I said before. So it's so interesting that you chose to analyze the medical term. So because they are considered as like the difficult terms, right? So do you have like, I was wondering, like, do you have any expectation or like initial hypothesis for your study? So if so, is it in accordance with the study's result? Okay, thank you. And then for Sarah, I would ask, um, I see that you are analyzing itchy songs like Dala Dala and also Wannabe, right? So I was wondering, like, can you speak Korean though? So where did you get this inspiration to analyze this topic? And also why you chose to analyze this topic? Because it's so interesting to me that you conduct analysis in Korean to English. Thank you very much.
Will the presenter answer first, or should I also give my questions to?
One at a time, I think. I think Pila and Sarah, first, please respond to Wikan's questions and comments. And then after they finish responding, then Scar as a second chance.
Okay.
All right, should I answer first or Sarah first?
You first, maybe?
Okay, I will go first. Thank you, Wikan, for the comment and constructive analysis. Maybe I want to give some reason why I choose Fina and Tapatunat instead of Gottlieb, even though I decided to analyze the subtitle. If you notice, the whole presentation, I only focuses on simple phrases or specific words and not the entire sentence or the entire word every time the actor talk or speak. I just really focus on the medical terms. And if I analyze it with Gottlieb, it's not really suitable. That's the first reason. And I think I more understand it by Vinay, analyze it by Vinay instead of Gottlieb. Because yeah, that's the reason I only focus it on the medical terms, not the whole sentence of the actors speaking. And because it's not full of medical terms. They talk about personal life, they talk about love life and many things. So what I want to focus is the medical terms. And for your questions, is there any expectation? Yes, of course. Since I watched the Grey's Anatomy both on Netflix and Disney, I can tell you that Netflix is more understandable for me and many of my friends because the subtitles are, more simple. They might be not really accurate because I already mentioned before in my presentation that Disney produced a more accurate translation, but they are too long. And when we try to enjoy a film, we are not only focusing on the subtitle. Yes, it is essential, but we also focus on the actors or maybe the scene and many more. And the Disney are too long, so I expect Netflix would produce more accurate translation, but turned out it not. Disney produced it more accurate translation, but yeah, it is more readable for me and many other people if they watch it on Netflix. But I think both streaming services produce a really great result. So yeah, that's my answer. I hope it answered your questions. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Fila. I agree with your opinion. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I will answer your question too, Vikan. So regarding do I speak Korean? Yes, slightly to a certain extent, not very advanced though. I've been learning recent time because COVID, like I have a lot of time, so I try to study it too. So the reason why or like the inspiration. So it's like I forgot recently. I've listened to Itzy's Mafia in the Morning, the English version. I realized like it's slightly different in terms of the Korean and English lyrics. Not really the lyrics not exactly the same in terms of ex, uh, equivalence, but the meaning as a whole is the same. So I was wondering, what about the other songs such as Wannabe and then Dala Dala, especially Dala Dala, because I know the refrain, the chorus, it speaks like because nan mungla Dala Dala. It's because like I'm rather different. So that's the point of the Korean lyrics. So I was worried about the English version that they will change it. So I listened to it and I see that they still maintain the form Dala Dala, and I was wondering if it is something that is common in translation, especially in song translation like that. That's it.
Wow, amazing. Go, go, go. Keep up the great work.
Okay, now is it my turn to ask questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, same like Vikan, I would like to congratulate Brigitta and Sarah because at least one burden has been taken off your shoulders and you have finished the seminar satisfactorily. And for Sarah, and I also studied Korean during this pandemic. I think that's a little out of topic, but I think yeah. So when I saw that you analyze Korean to English, and I was like, wow, it's so cool. I wish I could do that, but I haven't do that yet. Okay, so for the questions, uh, for Brigitta, I would like to ask, why are you interested in medical terms? I mean, like, usually, people from English letters are analyzing like literary text or maybe website like that, but you choose medical terms, which is not parallel with English background, and I would like to know why. And then for Raisa, uh, I was wondering about what can be developed from your current research. So because Korean and English, it's like a, what is it? Not really familiar English, what is not really familiar language partner, right? So I was wondering what can be developed from your current research and what idea do you have about the future research? Thank you.
All right, maybe I will answer first. Yes, I could agree with you, Saka, that medical terms are not very familiar and not many people interested to do. But earlier this year, I got a news that Grey's Anatomy adding a new season. So this year, if it is correct, they will have the 17th season. Um, that's why, yeah, I know Grey's Anatomy became the longest medical drama that has been aired, and their fans are all around the world. So I think it is amazing how people could keep watching the same television until 17th season, and it's talking about medical, because in my opinion sometimes medical drama, it could be boring, and the things that need to spice things up, like weird or crazy cases, it's practically impossible. And they did it, they nailed it. And I think the importance of subtitle to make the audience understand those cases and keep them interested to keep watching these TV series are also amazing. That's why I wonder how those translators could keep the audience stick with them, like why it's not easy to understand, it is hard, so that's why I want to know how they make it understandable, how they make it interesting aside from the drama. Because even though if the drama interesting, but if they don't interested with the medical terms, the whole point, then it will not continue until the 17th season, right? So yeah, I think that makes it interesting why people want to watch medical drama for 17 season gitu. So yeah, I hope it answered your questions. Thank you.
Okay, now I will answer your question. So what it was the second one was what future research, right?
Yeah.
So that one I expect for, because from my data it is very limited. So my expectation for like future researchers will include reasons why, as to why these various equivalents are found instead of the other, such as like the notative. Because when I first read the theories, I expected the notative will be the one that appears the most, will be the dominant one. But instead, connotative was the one that I found most frequent, because so I would expect for further research like that. And for the first one was Korean and English, right? Wait,
No, actually, I was asking like, yeah, because Korean and English is like an unfamiliar language pair, and that's why I asked you, what ideas do you have for the further research? That's it. Only one question.
Okay.
Okay.
So, like, because English and Korean is a pair that is very different, especially due to the fact that the structure is very different. I expect for like research that focuses on the structure, for like the song lyrics, but this, if they maintain the structure or not, or something like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So now I guess it's time to move to the Q&A session. Perhaps. Okay. So if anyone would like to ask some questions to both of our speakers, please raise your hands, or please hit the chat box down below. Any questions, please?
Meliana will ask.
Okay, Meliana, please.
Okay, so that was an insightful presentation from Villa and Sarah. And my question goes to Villa. So Villa, in your opinion, medical text or medical movie like what you analyze is it supposed to be target text oriented or source text oriented? Okay, that is my question for you. And for Sarah, in analyzing Korean language, I was wondering that what's it? There are some phrases in Korean language that is difficult to be translated into English, right? Because sometimes when we want to know the meaning of a song and foreign song, it is kind of difficult for us. So how you I think your solution when you encounter those kind of difficulties, like for example some phrases in Korean and you think like this is difficult to be translated into English. Okay.
Thanks for the questions, Eliana.
Okay, can I answer it now?
You may.
Okay. Thank you, Meliana, for the questions. And I think, in my opinion, it depends. Because if I will say it should be source language oriented or target language oriented, it cannot apply in many circumstances. I think mostly will be source language oriented because like a name of this disease or maybe a name of approach are found in the different country. It's not found in Indonesia. That's why maybe if there's no equivalent translation, we need to consider source language oriented. But if the disease or the approach or I don't know, maybe a vaccine are found in Indonesia, maybe it should be target text oriented, which is Indonesia. Because sometimes it is very difficult to find the equivalence, and if we try to reformulate or find another term, it could lose the meaning. And it's not right in my opinion, because this is a technical term. It should be not reformulate very far away, unless it is something like draw labs, the idiom of draw labs that I already mentioned before. Maybe a translator could take liberty to reformulate. But if it's a name of procedures, name of a disease, it should be source language oriented. But if they could find or they could make a new equivalent word in Indonesia, we should use it more. Thank you. I hope it answered your questions.
Okay, Villa, thank you for your answer. So for the result of the translation, it can be concluded that medical text should be communicative translation, right?
I'm sorry?
So it can be concluded that medical text can be should be communicative translation, right? I think to be informative for us as the reader.
Yes, if it is source language oriented, there should be an explanation. So I think this is one of like interesting things. I know this is not in your questions, but in medical, in Grey's Anatomy, if there's a Latin or if there is like name, a disease name that is unknown or unfamiliar, they do not include explanation. It is different in Dr. Romantic. It is a Korean medical drama or hospital playlist, if you ever heard about it. If there is a name of disease or name of procedure that is unfamiliar, they will put an explanation in the left bottom of the screen. So yeah, they still keep the original name or the original procedure, but they will include the explanation. So the reader or the audience will still understand without, changing the whole of the medical terms.
Okay. You feel like
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to answer your question. So you asked about when I can find the correct translation, right?
yes.
In Korean
So
and
how you
English.
deal with difficult Korean phrases?
So when I did this research, the first thing I did was check the official translation from the music video, even though it does not have precise, because it is a subtitling translation, but some of them are correct. So if I have a difficulty understanding the Korean word in this lyric, I check over there. But if I want to confirm if it is the exact meaning, I search on a Korean website, or if that also did not help, I ask my friend who is Korean to help me. But like
Mm.
define the meaning.
Okay,
think
I
that
agree
is
with you. So when you translate or when you analyzing ITZY songs, you also ask your Korean friends, right?
Mhm.
So okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there anyone who would like to ask some questions again, please?
I have a question. Two questions actually.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Nanda, as you can see on my screen. So I have the two questions, but actually it's one question but different speakers. So the first question is to Fila. Well, I realized that reading your paper, your analysis mostly focused on the source text and the target text. Actually mostly they're based on the definition of the dictionaries, and you analyze that to the target text, right? So my question is maybe a bit of context. uh, in your own words or in your own opinion, do you think that what do you think if do you think there is a definition, like in the medical definition? Okay, medical definition, I'm not saying a general definition of the dictionary, but the medical definition itself, is there a effect of the medical definition towards the concept that you're applying to your translation strategies? That's the first question. And then the second question goes to Raisa. Well, I do not learn Korean that much, but I say I know a little about Korean. I mean the words, but my question is regarding word order. I don't know if Korean has word order or not, but whenever I learn another language, I think there's a word order. So do you think that the word order in Korean affects a lot towards the English translation? Okay, I think that's all the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Nanda, for asking the speakers questions.
Okay, before I answer your questions, thank you so much, Nanda, but I need to know, so please elaborate the meaning of the effect. You mean it will be less accurate, or it will be not understandable, or what type of effect you try to imply?
Okay, so I think it's whatever. You can say, you can pick maybe like let's say, let me read your paper a bit. Maybe like let's say a borrowing. Let's say borrowing. Let's say here borrowing. You say that situs inversus in your paper. So maybe in your opinion or in your view, I just want to ask that, is there any medical definition itself, like let's say okay, citizen fairness, the definition on the concept is blah 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 blah, and then when you have to translate, when you analyze that, oh, maybe that like there's some sort of a connection or link between the concept of this medical citizen fairness to the English translation, and you may think like, okay, maybe so there's like some connection. Is there a like kind of view, or is there a kind of analysis about it?
Oh, okay. Maybe we can talk about the situs inverses, because the other example are more adaptation. So there is the Indonesian patent terms. For the situs inverses itself, I don't think it is pure English. There is a Latin word in it. And for some disease name or like syndrome and some stuff like that, sometimes we cannot really translate it. For example, syndrome, many of the syndromes name are from the founder, or the founder's name. So we need to translate, we cannot translate it. So we just put the name of it and add syndrome behind it in Indonesia. Jadi syndrome apa gitu, sindromnya siapa, and some stuff like that, like situs inverses. There is no specific translation, and if we want to really translate it in Indonesia, it will not be understandable, in my opinion, because yeah, it will be long and people will like, what is it? So for me, best just leave it like that. If there is a Latin word or there is a specific name that we cannot translate, but if there is, but if there is like equivalence term in Indonesia, even though maybe it's different in word class or some stuff like that, we can use it as alternative. But if, like you mentioned before about situs inverses, I think it will be hard. And in my opinion, there are many of medical terms that is like that. It will be hard. Even though in daily life too, we still mention like a disease name in their source language, not in target language. So yeah. Is that answer your questions, or do you still confused?
Now I want to make this a little bit clear. So let me get through it. So you're saying that actually the concept or the definition from the source language is actually possible to make a translation from that source language, right? But in your case, in your paper or in your analysis, it is actually quite not possible, because there's some sort of like, let's say, obstacles. So is it like that?
Yeah.
So you're trying to I don't know, like maybe like trying to find an approachable way. It's like the equivalence side of that kind of analysis.
Yeah, I want to find like how the translator translate the medical terms, and maybe I could find find a way to a more equivalence translation, give new insight to the translator. Maybe instead of using this, you could using this. And since the borrowing is not really helping, maybe you should avoid using borrowing and try to find another one. But it's not always apply in many cases. That's what I want to say. There are some of the medical terms can be translated using adaptation and literal translation just fine, but there is some others that cannot be translated with that, and it is okay. But maybe if in the future We all know Indonesian government always updated their vocabulary in many fields. So I guess as a translator, we need to keep up with that. So maybe right now, we can only use borrowing. We can only use borrowing, but maybe in the future, when the government or I don't know, another translator can use a more equivalent term, we can use that in the future. But for now, some are just fine using adaptation and literal translation, and some just can use a borrowing since there is still no equivalent translation.
Okay, I get it. Fascinating. So thank you for clearing the cloud in my mind.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now I will answer your question on that. So you asked about if word order, and I assume it is like in Indonesia SPOK,
Right.
or like alphabet orders.
Yeah. The
Like
word
SPOK,
patterns.
right?
Yeah, the word patterns.
So, in my opinion, it does not really affect it, but I find it will be more like what is it, like difficult. No, but that it doesn't really affect it. It is just more difficult because you have to know the form. I mean, like the structure is different. So, for example, I will just give an example. If in English that person is eating a bread, and in Korean it's 그 사람은 빵 먹어요. 빵을 먹어요. So 그 사람은 is that person. But so the next one is not like person and then eat and then bread, but it is bread first and then eat. So it is just became more difficult, but it does not really affect how it is being translated for subject it. So it is really unrelated with my topic, but just for example, when you watch, for example, Running Man, that they often have a concept where there is a spy between them, and in the translation, because in Korean, the like when they say, oh, they are the spy, the right is at the end. So when they edit it, they can be build up the tension and then say it right or wrong at the end. However, in translation, especially in Indonesia, you can't, because you have to say like orang itu adalah mata-matanya, but it is not in the case for the Korean. So yes, in my opinion, it does affect subtitling, but it doesn't really affect on translation in general. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so the word pattern is flexible, but it doesn't affect the translation. Is that correct? Is that what you're trying to say?
In my opinion, yes, it doesn't really affect it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because when I learned Russian, it also, the theory is quite the same, because the word or the patterns that does not affect the translation that much. But yeah, thank you, Raisa, for clearing up the clouds in my mind. Cheers.
Thank you, Nanda.
Right. Is there anyone would like to ask another question?
Nadia likes to ask this.
Please.
Nadia, Chris. Lily, perhaps, Lily.
Not yet, sir, at the moment.
Gabriela.
I don't have question at the moment.
All right. Thank you for those who already asked the questions. Now, I would like to close the discussion and hand over the rest of the seminar to Mr. Haris. I have been Ryan Rizki and as your moderator, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity. Now, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Haris. Please, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Rizki, and thank you the two speakers for having great presentations, both of you, and also questioners, yeah, the audience who asked, like Maileana and also Nanda, who gave tough questions to Filla and Raisa. That's something that I expect. Yeah. You ask, but you do not just accept their answers, but you need more clarification. You want to ask more and more and more. That is what really I expect from this seminar class. And it turns out that it went like what I expect. Although I need some of you, more of you, students, guys, like Agnes Chika, Grace, Elizabeth, Nadia, Argentino, Yemima, Vanessa, Alexis, to ask the presenters in another occasion. Yeah. But what Nanda and Mailana did is wonderful. Also, the judges, Scar and Wikan, who not only asked but also gave constructive feedback. Okay, actually, after each presenter finished presenting their papers, that should be directly followed by the judge. Yeah, so not directly followed by the speaker too, but judge will ask speaker one first and then followed by question and answer from the audience. And then after that, after all of them are finished examining speaker one, then we move to speaker two. Yeah. So next time in next seminar, that should be done that way. So first seminar to be examined first by judge and the audience, and then after we finish examining the first speakers, then we move to second speaker. Okay, guys. So next moderator, that is Yemima. So please, you have to examine one by one. We have to examine one by one. And I also, yeah, I also give some signs to the students who ask with this one, meaning that Mailana asked who's presenters, that way she got 2 points, and also Nanda also gets 2 points. So the more points that you earn, that you collect, will give you benefit later in the final grade. While the judges, automatically they will get this because they have to ask, right? They have to ask the presenters Villa and Sarah. So every time you become judge, then you will be automatically getting the 2 points. So the more you collect the points, the more chances that you will get an optimum grade for your final score. Okay, and I also got questions about the how to score. It seems to me that some of you have forgotten to count the score. Okay, let me show you again the score. Yeah. Assessment form, peer. Okay, this is how you will do it. Give name for Villa, for example, Villa, the number, date, day, 20 September. And then give her score for her problem formulation. For example, you give 90. And her methodology, okay, let's say 85. Her analysis is quite good, therefore 90. And then you think 95 is not enough, then you give 97. The written English, based on her paper, you have no doubt of giving her, let's say, 92. And the content knowledge during question and answers indicated that she is able to answer questions and she is able to respond the questions from the audience and also from the chats, then you give her 84. Her delivery or language, her presentation, her PowerPoint, you think it's great, then you will give her 95. Now, for the first part, you have to find the average of these scores. So it will be 90 plus 85 plus 97 divided by 3. Berapa ini? And 3 plus 85 plus 97.
91.
Yeah, 91.
6.
This one still 92, ya, karena tidak ada duanya, toh. And then 84 plus 95 divided by 2, 89.5. 84 plus 95 divided by 2 equals with 89.5. Now you will put the scores in this box. Part 1, 0.5 times part 1. So 91 times 0.5. Berapa ini? $45.5.
5.5.
Okay, and then part 2, 92 times 0.5 equals 23. And part 3, 89.5 times 0.25.
22.25.
22.4. Now, total this score 45.5 plus 23 plus 22.4, 90.90. And take a look at these conversions. It belongs to this category, right? Therefore, grade is A. And don't forget to type your comment and suggestion or anything. Yeah, that's the way we score or grade the speakers. Moderator doesn't have to count this one, yeah, because he or they must be focused on managing the discussions. Therefore, only audience and also the judge. And when you submit this form to LMS or Belajar, don't make the form into one. You have to submit two, Filla and Sarah, two files, Filla and Sarah. So each audience should submit two files, while the judges only submit two. So the score of the judges is the combinations of or the agreement between Wikan and Sekar. You know what I mean? Okay. Sekar and Wikan already convened in breakout room so that they have reached an agreement about the scores that they will give to both presenters, to Filla and Sarah. And later I will return these scores to the speaker so that you can read and then you can find out what your friends have given you the scores. And also perhaps in comments and suggestions. Okay? Guys, you get the idea of scoring? Jadi ada yang bingung lagi loh? Okay. Yeah, that's the way we score. Okay, so next week, as we have agreed on the group divisions, on September 27, we'll have two presenters, Wikan and Skar, moderated by Yemima and judged by Mei, Liana, and Nino. So I suggest you to, to collect your score as many as possible. Kumpulkan skor ini sebanyak-banyaknya, poin ini sebanyak-banyaknya. Yeah, thank you, Nanda. Yeah, it's a good discussion too between the audience and also from the judges. It meets my expectation. Only it needs more students who ask, ya. Jadi perlu lebih banyak lagi yang bertanya. Okay. If you have no questions, we will end our meeting today, our class. and I'll see you next Monday. Thank you, Villa, Raisa, Sarah.